How's everybody doing? Okay, today we are going to talk about uh, incompatibility of signs. Okay, um, and it's funny because many astrologers are divided as to whether they should put this as compatibility or incompatibility of signs. I'm going to put it under incompatibility of signs. Not so much because there's a problem with the person that I'm about to mention this combination with. But it has to do with another partner. There are two partners, Today we're doing the compatibility or the incompatibility of signs, dealing with Aries and Virgo. Aries and Virgo. They fall under the incompatibility of signs. Even though Virgo and Aries share a mythology. The mythology that is shared with Aries and Virgo is one of the victim and the rescuer. Aries being the victim and Virgo being the rescuer. But this is not so much about the Virgo being the rescuer per se. In the mythology, it is Mercury, the planet Mercury, or the energy that symbolizes Mercury in Greek mythology. Hermes is the one that rescues Aries from the wrath and ridicule of the gods. And I think I mentioned that at some point in one of my other videos about the mythology of Aries and Virgo. You see, Aries is the most hated of all the gods. He's the most hated because he loves war and he loves bloodshed. He loves, he's the god of war. So, ruled by Mars. So both the planet and the sign symbolize powerful, destructive, procreative, and destructive energies. So, what can we say here? Looking at Mercury, the mythology goes like this, if I can remember clearly. Aries is having an affair with Aphrodite. And Aphrodite is married to another god. But she's, stepping out with Mr. Aries. So the gods already know what's going on. And the god that Venus or Aphrodite is married to is ashamed and disgraced by her infidelity, promulgated by Mars, Aries. And the gods don't feel that this is fair. But Aries doesn't give a shit. He's going to take any woman he wants, whether they belong to him or they belong to other men. Aries says, no, that's the mythology. So the gods want to catch him in the act. They got to catch him in the act so that they can provide a suitable punishment to Aries by the other gods. So what do? When Venus and Aries meet on their secret rendezvous, to have sex, they fall into this net that was set up by the gods as a trap. And when they got together and started having sex, the net fell on them. And then the lights came up. And all the gods and their Lord of hosts saw these two committing infidelity. Venus, or Aphrodite, one of the 9 daughters of Zeus, is dealt with accordingly. But Mr. Aries, he's casted into a prison. And all the gods ridicule him and make fun of him. And now he's in prison. So therefore, since he's the god of war, the wars that are going on the earth are unsupervised because Aries has been casted into a prison by the other gods, sanctioned by Zeus. But there was a major crisis going on in which it's almost like, if you know the story of David and Goliath. Remember the story of David and Goliath? In which Goliath with a slingshot, David with a slingshot throws it at Goliath, who was a giant, and kills him. Israel, or Jerusalem, was under siege by the Philistines. And then later by the Assyrians. And way before that, in the pre-Hellenistic period, by the Phoenicians. And then Egypt, Libya. You know, Israel has been surrounded by a lot of enemies. In the Hellenistic world to present. So there was a war. So I'm not saying that this was the war that took place in the mythology of Aries and Virgo, but it was a similar story in which Aries was needed in order for the war to win on the good side. But because he was in prison, the fate of Israel, Jerusalem, was at the hands of the enemy. But Zeus refused to let Aries go. He cast him into a prison. And this was a critical political, social-political, strategic war going on the earth. And if Aries wasn't there, the god of war, to supervise who would win, fate would go to the wrong victor. And history, as we know it today, might be different than what we learned in school. So understand the importance of Aries to be present in war of these two nations, Israel and well, not Israel, but Greece. Because back in the day, it was all about Greece and the Hellenistic era. So, in keeping with anthropologically with the history, the historical account in which the mythology was written and based on, the Aries could not come out and defend and fight and be the god that he is, the god of war. So the point came where Israel almost lost, or Greece almost lost the war towards its neighboring enemies. Mercury defied the orders of Zeus and actually went and let Aries out. And when Aries was let out, the war was won towards the Greek side, the Macedonian side. And, you know, we have a history today that is in sync with those accounts according to that mythology. So, if Mercury would have never gone out to rescue Aries from the imprisonment that was unjustly and unfairly imposed by Zeus, Greece would have lost the war and would have imploded and been consumed by its surrounding enemies. So, in that keeping with that mythology, Virgo represents the rescuer and Aries represents the victim. If you want to read the story more clearly, I have advised many of you to read the book on Carlos Castaneda or Carl Sagan, who are mythologists, and you're going to find those mythologies in there. So, applying that in the context of interpersonal relationships, between Virgo and Aries, we have a partnership that absolutely will be based on mutual attraction. The Aries woman, the Aries woman will find the Virgo man very sexy. And she might like and be attracted to the shy type of Virgo. The one that has a hot body in the inside of his clothes, but doesn't really feel comfortable or confident about himself, and prefers to hide himself behind books and facts and figures and accounting. You know the type. She will pursue him and turn him out. Turn him out. Turn him out. Now, if he's the shyster, gigolo, hustler, thug type, he might end up hurting her. But then she'll like it even better than that. And then it gives her a chance to hurt him. And they can hurt each other. But not to the extent that, let's say, a Scorpio would. The Aries woman will love the Virgo man, but she ain't going to take his shit. And the Virgo man will be totally head over heels over this woman. And love her and be dedicated to her and devoted to her. Be devoted to her. I know that there's a lot written in astrology about Virgo being kind of like a dud in bed, or being boring, or being unimaginative. And I guess there are Virgo men that are like that. My theory is on men that are very shy like that, it could be that there's sexual inexperience. If you don't have a lot of sexual experience as a man, you're not going to come across as someone who's very confident and can slay and sling. If you don't have that kind of experience, if you as a man was never once sleeping around, bed hopping, you're not going to exude that confidence. And that's with any man, not just Virgo. But Virgo, you can't sleep on Virgo, because the Virgo man, he has a couple of tricks up his sleeve. And whatever he doesn't know, trust and believe that it's only temporary. He'll figure it out and he'll learn. And he can be just as adept sexually as Mr. Pisces or Mr. Scorpio or Mr. Taurus. But Virgo's heart has to be involved. Virgo's heart has to be involved in order for his sexuality to evolve and morph to the type of man that can sling and lay it and be confident and make a woman go crazy. Sexuality, along with everything else, also has its phases of evolution and growth and maturity and fruition. When we're in our 20s, and we have sex, yeah, sex could be great. It could be fucking fascinating, like the porno movies. But that doesn't mean that you know what you're doing. That doesn't mean that you are tapping into other deeper recesses that sexuality can offer. But those doors don't open in consciousness unless you are much that older. Having sex in your 30s or 40s is a different experience than having sex when you're in your teen years or when you're in your 20s. It is magical in those younger years because it is the first time the body is bursting with sexuality. Puberty is brand new. It's like when you drink. When you first start drinking, when you're young, in college, it's fascinating to have a buzz and be drunk. But as the years pass and you're in your 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and you drink like a sailor, the alcohol and the effect won't be the same as it was when you were younger. and the body's first experience of the exhaler, of the hallucinogenic effects of the alcohol or any other drug. That's why people get addicted to drugs. They crack, they're chasing the high. They're chasing the original high. It's kind of like the same thing when we're talking about sex. And Virgo is a steady, simmering, smooth, slow burn of sexual maturity and discovery. It happens slowly with Virgo. With the Aries woman, she will probably most likely be far more experienced than he is, and can probably teach him a thing or two. Let me tell you, I've been with Aries women, and they can teach you a thing or two, maybe 3 or 4 things. They're like, oh, and then you learn. Yeah, it might hurt your feeling. You might get embarrassed as a man. You're supposed to know what you're doing. But when you're young, you really don't know. And men who become good lovers in bed are the ones that have been taught and trained by women. It doesn't happen by itself. Don't fucking tell me that you as a man reaching puberty and have your first date with a woman that you're going to know how to eat her out and have that woman orgasm. You're not going to know what you're doing. You're lucky if you know what you're touching down there. Because men are kind of ignorant about that stuff. Thank God that that's going to die with my generation, and this millennials seem to be more in tune, not only with their bodies, but with the mind and body connection. Virgo has the key to that mind and body connection. And Virgo is very cool about it. He downplays it. He knows he could be a masterful lover. Virgo can be a very masterful lover. Remember, he's pulling from the opposite polarity, Pisces, which is the greatest lovers on the zodiac. Cancer being second, and then Taurus being third. So understand that there's a certain level of sophistication and finesse that comes with the Virgo sexuality. Not just with the woman, but with the man too. But this type of realization and this type of emotional and sexual maturity is not anything that's going to occur anytime soon, especially if you're below 30. That's something that has to be morphed, and it has to evolve congruently. So that means that in order for that to occur, there has to be an open dialogue and open communication. Now, this is where Libra, Virgo, if we're dealing with the woman, we're dealing with the Aries man. The Virgo woman can teach the Aries man about slow passion, slow burn, slow and tasteful lovemaking. Because Aries, he didn't quit it. You can't do that to the Virgo woman. Now, that doesn't mean that she ain't gonna like that. Let me tell you. Hey, you know my videos on Virgo women, okay? They can slay you more efficiently and better than any other woman in the zodiac. All women can do this, of course, but understand that each woman has a specific finesse and how she does it. The Virgo woman is not going to allow the Aries man to come in and devour her body and get his fucking pleasures and not give her some. No, she's going to train him like a dog, like a puppy. And Mr. Aries will be all too willing. Because this girl is hard to conquer. And that is a challenge for Mr. Aries. But the roughness, because it's about fucking. It's not about lovemaking. And the Miss Virgo girl, it's about lovemaking. It ain't about fucking. It could be about fucking if she wants it to be. But if she's serious about you, she's like the investor. Long-term investor or the short-term investor? Which one are you? No, she's the type of bitch that is a long-term investor. And she needs to see a trajectory of what you are going to bring to the table. Not just the dick. Not just the sling. So understand that even though Aries, the Aries man, can very well deliver the goods, he's not very good with paying specific attention to detail, which he's going to have to learn to do if he's going to keep the attention of this woman. So, what can we say about the Virgo woman? I mean, really deeply. Okay? We never talk, and I never go into details about the Virgo woman's or any woman's sexuality. But here, we're going to have to go into a little bit of detail. And I'm going to go more extensively about it on part 2. Okay? The Virgo woman in bed, let me tell you this. First, let me put out what I think is bullshit and then tell you the real deal. According to my experiences in dealing with Virgo clients, particularly women, Virgos are often portrayed as being bad lovers. No. Even when I was young and studying astrology, we've had that bad rap that we ain't good in the sack. The man is too uptight, too shy, and he's inclined to doing the mercenary position. Well, I don't know what happened with me because I was never like that. Not to brag, but I never fit that profile or anyone that I knew. But then when I went to college, I met many Virgos, especially in my travels, that did fit that kind of archetype. Because anything can be possible and any kind of judgment can be made by just looking at somebody. You don't really know a person until you've been in their shoes. Even me in my sexuality with other men, Virgo can flip you. And you can totally underestimate him. The thing is that the Virgo sexuality simmers. It's like baking an Italian lasagna. Lasagna al forno, which is a very famous Italian dish. And it takes hours to make. Like 18, 19 hours to make. When I do pernil, Dominican style, pernil, no, it takes me a good 9 hours to cook that bitch. But when you eat it, you break the bones and suck the fucking marrow out of the bone and then suck your fingers. That's Virgo sex and sexuality. Anything good has to take its time to simmer and bloom. Anything rushed is no good. And Virgo doesn't rush with anything, including sex. I think Virgo is probably the best sign in the zodiac when it comes to foreplay and petting. Before the big prize. We like to get you juiced up before the big delivery. That's not so the case with Mr. Aries or with Miss Aries. For you. That's not the case with Mr. Aries or Miss Aries. They are intense and they rush. They don't slow, bump, and grind. And the ones that you do discover that are like that are probably have some strong Taurus, or Scorpio emphasis, or even Venus influence in their birth charts. But understand that could turn, if we're dealing with an Aries man and a Virgo woman, that can turn Miss Virgo off. It will turn her off after a while. It won't turn her off initially because she's going to love it. Remember, Miss Virgo can be very freaky, dicky, and kinky. She loves a man who's sweaty and musty and, grinding and knowing that she's providing him with that kind of pleasure. But if nothing else follows with that, or intimacy, then it runs into a problem in the long haul. And we're done with part 1.